Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. Today Nutmeg and I want to talk about a crop that is actually right behind us, and that is going to be beans. And we want to talk about beans today because they have become one of the hardiest, most productive summer crops that I have in my garden. And when you live in Central Texas and every single day for 3 months is over 100 degrees, you need crops that are gonna be able to withstand the heat. So let me take you guys in and show you a closer look at the beans and give you some reasons why I think they are one of the best summer crops and they should be a staple in your summer garden. In this bed here, I actually have 3 different types of beans, as well as some flowers to aid with pollination and attracting of bees and butterflies. So first I have the bush beans, which you can see here. I will probably be able to find some beans on some of them. This one doesn't seem to have any, but I have them. All of the beans here started in stages. So this was the first crop that I started in April, and then I planted another round of these in June, and then I will go ahead later and show you the ones that I actually planted this month in July. Same with these soybeans or edamame. These were the ones that I started in April. These I started in early June, and these I started in late June. Now with the noodle beans, all of the ones that you see that are growing over the top of my trellis, I started in April. I started some in early June over here. I think maybe one I started in late June right here, as well as some June starts on this side. So all of them at this point have at least begun to climb the trellis. So they have been pretty productive. These as well have gotten a little bit farther than some of the late June starts. But what I really want to talk about with these is the production value, especially on these Chinese green noodle beans. Now some of these I have let go too long, like this one here, but it will be good for saving the seeds. Right here is a really nice mature seed that I can feel through the bean. This is probably what you want when you're going to harvest the Chinese green noodle beans, and they are specifically known for being about 12 to 24 inches long. When they reach about 12 inches long, they're ready to harvest. This one looks a little short, but I am gonna harvest it today. Anyway, these noodle beans have been especially productive. They kind of produce in waves or batches, which I really like because you don't have the constant production of only getting 1 or 2 at a time. You can really wait and have a couple meals worth to harvest at the same time. Now with the edamame over here, these are dying because they actually produce all at once and the plant is done. So these here are actually flowering. You can see the little white flowers. So they will be producing for me soon. Whereas these are sort of just getting started. Maybe a couple flowers here or there, but they're definitely not as far along. So with these, kind of like the noodle beans, you'll be able to get them in batches if you do succession sowing so that you can have a meal here, a meal there. Now let me look really quickly and see if I can find some beans for you. Here's some. These bush beans have not been as productive as the other 2 varieties, but they did take a little bit longer to get going. And I do see a lot of flowers right now. So I'm thinking either these are not as heat tolerant as the other 2 bean varieties that I have in terms of setting fruit or setting beans, I guess, or they're just in general not as productive, which is fine. These are just setting a much higher standard for beans. Now, as I mentioned, I started some seeds in late July, and that was because I had half of this bed that was empty because I pulled up all of my onions for the season, and I wanted something that I was going to be able to start in this heat but wouldn't last and through the winter because I want to plant onions again in the winter. So naturally I decided to experiment and try beans. I planted 2 rows of bush beans right here, the same variety that I have in the other bed, and 1 row of the soybeans or edamame. I'm still waiting on a few of them to come up. Not sure if they will, but I'd say we have a pretty good success rate so far, if nutmeg doesn't sit on them. For instance, this row here, every single one of the beans came up. This one, I'm missing one. The edamame did okay. I'm not really sure what happened there, but we're still in that window where they could be sprouting, so I'll give it a few more days before I plant some more seeds. The thing about this bed is that it gets a little bit of shade in the morning from the carrots, and then it doesn't start to get shade until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, where it gets shade from this fence as the afternoon sun comes over this way. So it really was a gamble, as there's not really much you can start in full sun in triple digit heat here in Texas. But so far, things seem to be working really well as my beans have sprouted, and they should be fine. We might get a little bit of a break toward the end of August, which might help with production, especially with the bush beans. But so far, this is going really well, and I'm looking forward to having a lot of beans for the rest of the summer. The last thing I'm going to do today with these beans is I'm going to go ahead and harvest them, even the ones that are a little bit past their prime, because I will use them as seeds to start more crops, whether that be later on in the fall or next spring. They are pretty hardy with the summer heat, but they are not quite as hardy in the winter. I think maybe if they were an established plant, they could tolerate a light frost. But seeing as in Central Texas we get 1 to 2 deeper frosts every year, I'm not expecting them to be able to tolerate too much. This one has a little bug on it, but that's okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and harvest out the rest of these beans, and I'll see you after. There's still a couple of more small ones on the vine, but wow, this basket of beans is probably the largest harvest I have ever had, which is really cool because this is my first year actually growing beans. But one thing I like to do is grab a few of the ones that look the longest. Maybe this one too. They all look really similar, but we'll see. And I want to measure them actually. Got my measuring tape, because they are supposed to get up to 2 feet. And then we'll go ahead and measure these beans. So I have it backwards there, that's okay. This one's actually kind of short. It's about 20 inches. Measure the next one, if it will stay upright. This one's also about 20. My goodness. I thought these were longer. Oh, this one's super short. Okay, 18. The longest one that I had was actually 23 1/4. So this one's decent, almost 21. So that's our longest so far. 19. So no super long ones today. It's kind of also why I was holding out on harvesting, and 20 inches. So this one is the winner. 21 inches, not bad. Just a little fun thing I like to do. And then another thing I will probably do is separate out all of the ones that are past their prime, like this one. You don't really want to eat this. It's paper thin at this point, whereas one that you could eat and you want to eat is really thick and plump like this. So all of these I will let dry out on my counter for about 2 or 3 days. It really doesn't take long when they're this paper thin. And then I will go ahead and harvest the little bean seeds and use them again in the garden. So that's going to be it for us today. Thank you so much for coming along with us as we collected some beans and kind of went over why these are such a good summer crop and really heat tolerant, which is such a blessing in this Texas garden. But if you like this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from me and Nutmeg. Thanks again, and we will catch you in the next one.